Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, October 14th, 2021. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello and welcome to the podcast this week. 2 weeks in a row, even with some cross-country, trans-Pacific travel. We got a full crew this week. Jeremy Williams here. Jeremy, I like your pinball shirt.
Thanks, man.
That's a pinball shirt, right? Yeah, those are flippers.
The many flippers, 10 flippers.
10 flippers, all the flippers. Good to see you. And Kishore, back from Hawaii.
Yeah, I got to go to the Big Island for the first time. There was a little bit of excitement on the trip in that there was a 6.2 earthquake while I was on the Big Island. So the earthquake happened, I think it was about 20 miles off the coast of the island, and it was underwater. And so there was some damage in different places. There was actually shaking that reached Honolulu, and some trees that fell, and some tragic circumstances there. I was, when this happened, this was in the middle of the morning, I was at Kilauea, the volcano, which started erupting again last week. I was on the side of the volcano. I was basically on the back side of it, between the volcano and the ocean, basically where all the lava flows towards the ocean. That's where I was when this earthquake hit. And we're on this place where we're kind of exposed to a lot of winds, and the winds were just like kind of rocking the car that we're in. And my wife and I were sitting there. She's like, "Is that an earthquake?" Because the car starts shaking pretty violently. And I was like, no, that's just got to be the wind. It was just a gust of wind. So that's how desensitized I am to earthquakes after living in San Francisco for 20 plus years, is I thought it wasn't even an earthquake. A 6.2 earthquake registered to me as a gust of wind. That's hardcore.
You guys ended up being okay, thankfully. Definitely.
Yeah. So people at the rangers at the volcano said all that happened was there's a couple extra gurgles of lava that kind of spit from the bottom of the crater, but nothing really happened. Like the lava ignored the earthquake.
Kishore, I was very excited to hear this story, but I got to tell you, when you retell this story next time, you were walking on the side of the volcano next to flowing lava, and the ground started to shake. Okay, that's how the story goes.
I mean, if we're doing that, I'm going to basically go full and then an ancient dinosaur emerged from a crack from the earth. It was pretty uneventful, but it was the most exciting place I could imagine being for an earthquake.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, again, glad you guys are all right. And I agree with Jeremy. You got to plus up that story the next time, because everyone you were with ended up being okay. No one knows. There's no footage. Right? Yes, the gurgling.
There's totally footage. There are all these webcams.
Footage of where you were. Yeah, you were in the thick of it on the island with an earthquake.
Photos, because the eruption happening. There's so much footage of what happened, and you basically you look at the webcam from the volcano, and it basically barely moves. The earthquake. It's pretty anticlimactic. I'll tell you what was a little more climactic for me that I was following along with was all the stuff coming out of New York Comic-Con that I was very jealous about.
Nice segue. That's where I was at, on the other side of the country in New York. Of course, right off the podcast last week, jumped on the plane, went to New York Comic-Con, our first real big convention with the entire Tested team there in support of Adam doing his interviews and his incognito, and also the Ghostbusters Afterlife panel. So in case you didn't see it on social media, there was a big, the big presence at New York Comic Con this year was probably Ghostbusters Afterlife. It was a diminished exhibitor presence, I think it'd be fair to say. So we didn't have as many of the big big studio booths or costumes on display. A lot of the collectible companies I usually follow weren't there this year doing their own things. But the big panel was Sony's Ghostbusters Afterlife panel with Jason Reitman and the cast there, his co-writer, and they announce at the end of the panel, typically when there's a moment to show a clip, would you like to see some exclusive footage? Because the movie comes out November 19th. Everyone's like, yeah. And then they actually just rolled into a screening of the entire film in that room. So anyone who had dinner plans, your dinner plans was watching Ghostbuster Afterlife that night on Friday night. And without any spoilers, I really enjoyed it.
How did they keep people from recording it? Like, that's a lot of people to monitor.
Yeah, we didn't come in through that same way. We went through a side entrance. I don't know what the screening process was like. I don't know if there were bag checks, but certainly there were security people who were walking around. I presume with some, night vision cameras. I don't think they could have avoided people. It was like a 3,000 person auditorium, I want to say. So there's was bound to be a leak, but from what I've seen so far, no one had leaked any footage or anything.
Great.
And the plot details, if you really wanted to know about certain plot details of this film, some of that stuff has been out. It's just in the form of merchandise, right? In Lego sets or just action figures, because the film was supposed to come out earlier, right? Or the summer or last year. And so, some of that stuff, names of characters and things like that, have been out in the form of toys. There's still plenty of surprises that I won't talk about. And I think if you have questions about what it means for you guys as original Ghostbusters fans, presumably you guys were big fans of the original.
Yep.
All I can say is it might make you cry. It'll make you laugh a lot too. It was really funny film.
What else do I want? That's great.
I only had two questions, which is, do you feel like there's the spirit of the first film is reflected in this film in some
loaded
ways?
Question, Jeremy or Kishore. Loaded question.
No, I don't mean
spirits.
It from like a plot perspective. I mean like just that first film, especially if you watch it now, you're like, wow, this is kind of a weird, bizarre film. There is a lot of comedy, but it's also kind of absurdist at points. Like, did you get those vibes from this?
I think tonally, I think probably the more recent Ghostbusters reboot film captured more of that eccentricity of the original in terms of it being this, a motley crew of strangers coming together to fight ghosts, and a lot of certainly improv and comedic elements. This one actually, I thought, found a real nice balance between feeling very much like the original Ghostbusters film, but also feeling very much like a Jason Reitman film. He makes dramas, really, right? Like Up in the Air and Young Adult and Juno, right? Like dramas with comedic elements in there. And this one certainly had a lot of that, the touching feel, and filmed very confidently. Like the thing I was like, wow, that like Jason Reitman knew exactly what he wanted to make, and they filmed exactly what he wanted to make, and and they pulled the right heartstrings. And I think the reviews are, there's Rotten Tomato reviews and stuff like that. And the one thing I would disagree with some of those reviews is that I think this movie is actually really funny. Like there stand out really great jokes, I think, throughout the film, which that's all I'll say.
The only other thing is, I would like to know if I'm able to purchase some High C Ecto Cooler, because it's almost Halloween, and that's the time of the year that you can enjoy fluorescent green drinks of some kind.
I was thinking about this, and like, what does Ghostbusters mean to a younger generation today? Like, the cast of this film is a little bit younger, and I hope we'll be able to have like a full spoiler conversation about it with you guys when the film comes out. But it is a younger cast, and is that meant to resonate more with a younger audience? And Ghostbusters, especially Ghostbusters 2, very much in the same kind of in the same strategy as like Batman and Batman Returns. Those are darker, feel like older films, but really resonated with the younger audience because of some of that marketing, because of the animated series. Real Ghostbusters came out and made Ghostbusters a thing, and the toys came out, and the high C ecto cooler, all that stuff was targeted for the kids and made Ghostbusters as a franchise really palatable for me as a kid growing up, even though I watched that film with a different lens as someone who grew up with Bill Murray, with SNL, and that type of more mature comedy watching it. And that's why I think it resonates, because you can watch it growing up and it still feels fresh. You see new jokes, you hear, some of the jokes play differently. I don't think we have exactly that type of marketing in today's, media landscape today. So I'm just really curious what a younger audience will feel like. Will you guys be taking your kids or showing this movie to your kids and what they might think?
Yeah, judging from the trailers, that seems to be the direction that they're trying to head in, is a movie that appeals to kids but hooks the parents. Like, all the people who grew up with Ghostbusters want to take their kids to go see it.
And I don't know what appeals to kids means. Like relatable?
Relatable. I think like it looks like it's got that Stranger Things vibe, which is the I guess harkens back to the 80s, but also is a stars kids in kind of a spooky environment. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's funny, it has Finn Wolfhard, who's in Stranger Things. He mentioned that in the panel, during his a lot of the cast talked about how they audition for this role, being shrouded in secrecy. And for Finn Wolfhard, he talked about he had worn the Ghostbusters jumpsuit in Stranger Things, and it's a completely different character. But does that make it relatable for all the kids who might like Stranger Things today?
Before we leave this entertainment segment, did you guys get a chance to watch the Robin test footage viral video this past few days?
Yes.
Because I was like, this really caught me off guard. I would have never thought I would have liked this. I would have almost found it disrespectful in my imagination, but I was blown away. So if you haven't seen this, just Google Robin test footage. This actor named Jamie Costa, who is apparently, I didn't remember this, but he's well known for doing a pitch perfect Robin Williams impersonation. He put up a test scene, presumably to prompt filmmakers to say, yes, let's make this biopic. And he is, he plays Robin Williams in a single scene with Pab Dauber, who played Mindy and Mork and Mindy. And it's this, I don't want to ruin the scene, but it's a dramatic scene which has comic and dramatic elements, and he's amazing. Like it starts out with just his voice, and you think you're listening to a Robin Williams, recording. It's incredible. His facial expressions, the embodiment that he does. So I'm totally sold on board. I hope that this does see, some executives with green light power, and that they make this movie. I can't imagine it would cost that much, and he has to star in it.
I guess you got to consult the estate, the family, right? And whether there's a story, I'm sure there's a story to be told as as iconic an actor, as resonant, a larger in life person as Robin Williams was.
I have read that Robin didn't want his likeness used for profit after his death. So it's possible that will be the where this just comes to a halt.
Yeah. The performance is uncanny. As an audition, it's. I might just I don't know if I need a full movie. I'm happy. Like the things this made me feel just made me want to rewatch interviews and old footage of Robin Williams. I don't know if the feelings I would get out of a full length biopic would be necessary, but certainly like kudos to the performance.
Yeah, there was a message from Robin's daughter Zelda on Twitter because she was getting spammed so much by people sending her the test footage, and she was saying how difficult it was to watch it because it's on one of Robin's most challenging days, not to spoil anything, and how hard that was for her to see it. So I wonder, Jeremy, if like what's really in the way, if the family is ready for it more than the profit thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they may never be, right? And that's totally their right. It's it's their personal life, and we have a treasure trove of the works that he created, that he gave to us, right? His whole life he gave to us, in all the movies and media and interviews and everything to go back on and think on fondly. To go back to New York Comic Con a little bit, you have any questions about the show floor, how the show was, the cosplay, Kishore? I'm sure you're curious about.
Of course, I was kind of following along on TikTok, like New York Comic Con handed over the reins of their TikTok channel to like a cosplayer and like one of those this guy Straw Hat Goofy, who does a lot of like you quick breakdowns of news. And so I got some views of the cosplay, but I'm curious, like first and foremost, like it looked like it was much more packed convention than what we had been seeing over the summer. Is that how it felt on the floor?
Absolutely, especially maybe less so on the floor. I was there Friday and Saturday, and early Friday, maybe because it was still a work day. I was like, okay, this just feels like a maybe half capacity in New York. It wasn't San Diego Comic Con shoulder to shoulders. The aisles were wider. There's room for people to not have to pack in. The lines didn't feel like you're getting in people's faces. But come Saturday, the cosplay was really there. The foyer area, the atrium area in the Javits Center with the big glass, like there were plenty of cosplayers. Usually also on that main level when people walk in where all the food trucks are, people set up their photos studios. That's a little outdoor area. People had their masks off and tons of cosplayers there. I was really, really, really pleasantly surprised by the amazing cosplay and lots of like stuff from the shows and movies that came out over the past year, right? People were just bringing out their cosplay that they had worn to the last Comic-Con they went to. They had been building up costumes for a big Comic-Con like this. So there's lots of WandaVision, lots of Loki, a couple Squid Game. There are things from Resident Evil, right? So like even all the pop culture things that had happened over the years, it felt like people finally had a chance to show their love for that in person. And then I went through on the last day after we finished filming and took out the iPhone 13 Pro, flipped on cinema mode, and Joey was all packed up and headed to the airport. And so I was like, ooh, maybe I can shoot a video just on the iPhone, and walked around and shot 70 clips on the iPhone and edited a little piece together that I think like makes me more of a believer in the iPhone as at least for YouTube, production capable camera system.
Yeah, I watched your video. It's really impressive. I will say that it really is a good example of what it's capable of, and it's not the same thing as what Joey would have done with his cameras. Like, let's be honest about that. Like, it is a fake version of much of what real lenses are capable of, and it's cool. And I will say, like, it's almost like it's so early in the evolution of that technology that it's like, to anybody who appreciates this kind of thing, it's so blatantly being faked by software that look is unaesthetic. It's almost like that crazy blurring edge that you see around everything might as well be an After Effect plugin. Like, it just has a look, and it's interesting and it's fun to watch. And I was really impressed.
I think you're absolutely right that it would not be what Joey had filmed, not just from a like purely technical standpoint, like the type of Joey using a zoom lens, right? He could get in tight, and I would try to do a zoom with the 3x telephoto lens. I was trying to mix up the shots so it wouldn't just look like the one cinematic shot, using even the front facing in cinematic mode. So it definitely has its own style. I'll tell you a little behind the scenes. We tried to shoot this exact video with the camera that we had brought with Joey. And as lean of a production as we typically are, we're not a big film crew. It's usually just, two people, someone holding the camera and someone in front of the camera, or just someone holding the camera, right? Like, Joey walking around with a camera, getting B-roll and stopping cosplayers. We weren't able to finish that video in time before an appointment we had to make. So we had like an hour to film that video. Essentially, we got basically halfway through and we're like, we don't have enough shots, we don't have enough things, maybe we can finish this later after we're finished with like Incognito. And we just ran out of time.
Yeah.
And it's just the nimbleness of, and maybe this is nothing new, right? Anyone who's had a smartphone and film video with it knows it's the phone you have in your pocket. It's the one that's convenient to you. But just even from a production standpoint, being able to hold this out, and the language when someone sees this camera, the phone camera, like a cosplayer, they pose for it and they react to it in very much the same way as they would someone holding a big camera. There's like no difference in
Yeah,
their
why not? Yeah.
performance for the camera. And in fact, they feel maybe less encumbered by like, oh, this is going to be a big production thing. It's just someone taking a, you know, a selfie photo or a camera phone photo. And so there's a little bit like just that a breaking of the friction, not only in the production on me holding the camera end, but there were, you know, getting the subjects to be willing to pose for the camera end as well. And that made, you know, getting 70 clips. I mentioned that because in an hour's time, like, it's not just one long video. It's like I'm shooting tons of clips here and there, and then uploading them to iCloud, downloading them. I'll tell you, anyone who works in Adobe Premiere, if you go into your iCloud photos, there's two versions of a cinematic mode video. There's the flat, unprocessed version is actually what they call the original version, and then the most compatible version, if you download that one has the embedded, you know, fake bokeh effect. So you actually get both versions and some versatility in how you want to edit that footage. But
If you had
ran well,
if you could have edited on the phone, presumably.
I tried. Yeah. The goal of the whole story was like shot and edited on iPhone at a 6-hour flight that evening from New York back to San Francisco, and I loaded got the clips. They were on the phone. I had both Adobe Premiere Rush and iMovie. I was tried it on both. I got through like the first 45 seconds after an intro, like the first 5 clips or so, and I imported music too. I went to our Dropbox. We have a Dropbox shared of our license-free music that we get from our supplier Jingle Punks, and I was ready to do the whole thing on flight, and it felt painfully so slow.
Yeah.
If someone had a gun to my head or like said you must edit this video, I'm sure I could do it, but I just missed keyboard shortcuts. I miss having a mouse, honestly. Like the touch screen is usable, but the phone screen is still so small, right? To have a timeline, to have a preview window, to have multiple tracks. People do it. Don't get me wrong. I know they're amazing people. I think Luma editor, I want to say, is one of the video editing apps. I know some YouTubers who just shoot and edit an iPhone use, and if they're comfortable with it and they have their flow and maybe it changes the way how they shoot and maybe they edit the clips beforehand in the camera roll, right? They tighten up those clips in the camera roll and then they import it. Like they have their workflow. It's not my workflow. And knowing how fast I could do it on a real computer at home, I just at that point opted to do it at home.
If you wanted to adjust where the point of focus is, would you have had to do that in the camera app and then export the clip again?
That is only accessible in the photo roll app / camera app.
Okay.
Yeah, by clicking the edit button. I don't think it's in Filmic Pro. Third-party apps do not have access to that yet. And none of this also gives you access to ProRes too. One of the big talking points of the iPhone 13 launch was ProRes video with more color depth and better latitude in your editing. I didn't need that. Like the video is up on our YouTube channel for tested members. We made it a member exclusive to get a sneak peek at New York Comic Con. And if you watch it, none of the video is color graded. It is straight. I just wanted to get it out and show people what video on an iPhone in the cinematic mode look like. And I think it looks okay. Hey everyone, Norm here. Before we continue, I want to let you know that this week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible with support from itpro.tv. Start or grow your IT career with online IT training from itpro.tv. Did the recent ransomware attack on the gas pipeline catch your attention? It's another example of how cybersecurity professionals are in demand. There are more than 500,000 open cybersecurity roles, and you can become a CyberSec Pro with online training. It's never too late to start a career in IT or move up the ladder, and itpro.tv has you covered. From CompTIA and Cisco to EC Council and Microsoft, itpro.tv has nearly 6,000 hours of on-demand training and engaging hosts who present information in a talk show format. They're live every day, and shows go studio to web in 24 hours. Courses are conveniently listed by category, certification, and job role, and stream itpro.tv courses live and on demand worldwide via Roku, Apple TV, PC, or their iOS and Android apps. Learn IT, pass your certs, and get a great job with itpro.tv. Visit itpro.tv/test to save 30% off all plans. That's itpro.tv/test. Once again, itpro.tv/test. Now back to the show. moving on to some comic news or pop culture news. It wasn't at New York Comic Con, but we did have some Guardians of the Galaxy news confirmed via James Gunn. And Kishore, I'm going to rely on you heavily for a little bit of comics explanation for this. But we have a Warlock. We have an Adam.
He's out.
Warlock. Oh, Kishore's bringing in an Adam Warlock statue. Yes. So comic fans of the 90s will recognize the name. Adam Warlock was the leader of the Infinity Watch, kind of the before the Guardian, what kind of the Guardians of the Galaxy took the place of in terms of the place in the MCU. This is a team with a team of people who kept eyes on the Infinity Gems. Was that fair?
Yeah, so this is post Infinity War, which is kind of the second series of the second saga of the Infinity Gems. Adam Warlock formed like a ragtag bunch of people that included a lot of people that we know to be part of the Guardians of the Galaxy. So like Drax was part of it, Gamora was part of it. There's also a couple other characters like Moondragon and Pip the Troll and stuff like that. And they just sort of kept watch over the Infinity Gems. And Adam Warlock is was a central character to the whole Infinity Saga. So it's kind of strange for him to enter the universe now, post that entire saga. But we got the setup in Guardians 2 with the oh god, I'm forgetting their name, the gold people, having somebody in basically a tomb that was perfect. And that's kind of the origin story for Adam Warlock. He was birthed by the high god, I can't remember the comic book character's name. It's like the High Eternal or something like that. Birthed in this cocoon as sort of like a perfect being. He has like a Jesus type kind of persona. And we got casting news this week on who will be playing him in Guardians 3. It's Will Poulter, who's been in a lot of things, but for us, I think the most recognizable is he was one of the stars of Black Mirror's Bandersnatch, that interactive movie.
That's right. He had he was the hacker with the hair, spiky hair. Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, because he's like been a child actor. Like he was in like We're the Millers. He had like a small part in Midsummer. I actually think this is sort of inspired casting. He was really good in Bandersnatch, and by all accounts, I think he's an actor with excellent range and will play this well. I think we're going to see a different sort of a side of Warlock that is like somewhat villainous at the start, but will probably ally with the Guardians in some way. And this won't be a one film arc, I don't think, for this character.
What?
I don't think this is a one and done. I think we're going to have Adam Warlock in the MCU.
What is Warlock's superpower?
He's...
That's how I feel too. That's so funny.
Yeah, it's not worth sort of comic explaining this so much, but he had in the comics like a very strong bond to the Soul Stone of the Infinity Gems, and so he oftentimes had this ability to transverse different planes of existence, and he was oftentimes characterized as being sort of a person that had these powers, but he would exist within the universe and outside of it at the same time. That allowed him to transverse a lot of cosmic planes. So as we go to a higher form of fighting, as Thor, a higher form of war, as Thor said, I think he'll be a character in that. He has
sure. He flew. He had super strength, and he shot beams from his forehead. That's it. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I think that's the answer you're looking for. He's Space Jesus, Jeremy. I think that's the way to really envision him for Guardian 3.
I think as a kid reading those comics, he was definitely a character you wanted to root for because he played, on this cosmic scale, he was someone with all the high level attributes on the Marvel trading cards, and someone who could, go toe to toe with like a Thanos and be pure of goodness. In the movie, the MCU, Do you remember in Guardians 2, it opens with them fighting a giant beast and stealing the Harbulary batteries for the Sovereign, the
Yeah.
gold people, right?
It's a music video. It's great.
Yeah, the gold people are the creators in the MCU of Adam Warlock, is what we assume. If there's a stinger at the end of Guardians 2 that teases this, and so this will be the birth, and so he'll presumably be all gold. I think, like Kishore said, I think it's inspired casting. Will Poulter, even though more comedic roles in the past, he was actually in The Revenant. He played, I think, a historical character, Bridger, I want to say, and was really good in that. But he has kind of heightened features that make him feel, and he's like tall, and I think he plays a good role. I don't know what this means for the Guardians franchise. Like James Gunn he's kind of walking the line of making DC films and Marvel films, and I think the cast is getting older. You know, Dave Bautista says this is the last one he'll probably do. Right? He doesn't want to get hours in makeup and face and body paint anymore. So is this a way to carry on and have a new Guardians of the Galaxy potentially, or a different roster while keeping that familiar name, kind of like how the Avengers has a rotating lineup? You know, they may have some, you know, maybe Rocket, just a voice character, CG, right? Easy for Bradley Cooper to do that forever, and Groot, and then maybe have an evolving cast and kind of become like the Infinity Watch in the comics. Maybe. Kishore, nod along. Kishore is nodding along. We'll say.
I'm nodding along. Like this is a very different story than the Warlock stories I grew up with that they're gonna go with, and it'll be fine. I trust James Gunn has more than earned our trust in terms of telling fun comic book stories.
Yeah.
Word.
We got some Lego news. First of all, we had an insider tip of someone who worked on that Seinfeld Netflix Lego commercial. They fully built out that set. I mean, everything, they framed it. So basically right to the edge of the frame apparently was what they had built, but that was a real physical set. There was some the close-ups, you know, there were maybe not Jerry Seinfeld, but Jerry Seinfeld was in a costume and doing lines. They did some stop motion, of course, you saw in that commercial, and it blows my mind. We also had a conversation briefly with Brent Waller, who designed that set for Lego. The actual Lego Ideas Jerry Seinfeld apartment set, and he had no idea what was going on. And so for him, a huge surprise and delight to see the thing he had designed in Lego in full scale. But did you guys see now the biggest and largest Lego set ever announced?
No.
The Titanic.
I watched an unboxing of this. Unashamedly watched an unboxing of this. I never watch unboxing videos. I watched it of this. This thing is massive. And it has like one big kind of feature to it that you can pull apart the Titanic and actually have like the inner workings. And there's like gears and pulleys that you can kind of manipulate and move. There's no iceberg though, if anyone is like really looking for an add-on to the set. But it's just massive. Like that's
Jeremy,
the real story of this ship.
Guess how long, or guess how many pieces this set is. We'll go with how many pieces is this being the largest Lego set?
I'm gonna go with 341.
Oh, come on.
Okay. I don't know. Look, you want me to? I have no idea. 10,000 pieces.
You're close. 9,090.
Wow.
We're getting to the point where Lego sets could reach 10,000 pieces. That will be, and they're going to get there one day. It will, at some point, it will be too many, but 9,090 pieces, $630. So for a price per piece ratio, not so bad. Kishore, you're right though. I think its most notable feature is, in addition to being just a large scale model of the Titanic, it tries to be very much like those model ships that people have in their, you know, their fancy mansion living rooms under glass or museums, in that it tries to be an architectural model as well, where the ship comes apart at two seams and you can see a cross section of the ship, of the decks, and the engines come out. So there's a little bit of interior detail. The length of this model, so the Lego Saturn one or the Saturn rocket was, what was it, 1969 pieces, I want to say, right? That's 100 centimeters tall, so a meter tall. The Super Star Destroyer Lego, the one that Will and I built, that's 124 centimeters long. This is 135 centimeters long, so it's like 4 feet. 4 feet long, a model of the Titanic. $630 comes out in November.
Ugh,
I'm not building this.
$630. Damn.
I'm not building this.
Hey,
I pay
you know
to watch
the-
someone build it though.
The one that I am gonna get, and I'm late to the party on this, is the Super Mario question block. Have you seen the Super Mario 64 question block?
Oh yeah,
this
is cool.
Unbelievable. All the features of that. I'm definitely getting that this Christmas.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, that one unfolds, transforms. Okay. Also, yesterday, hey, I guess we can report happy news that William Shatner has come back to Earth. He has returned to us mere mortals.
Okay, this is great. This is great. Did you? I assume you guys watched the video
Of him in space, or edge of space.
Of the rocket going up and coming back down, and him coming out of it.
Yes, but I think there's also additional footage of him doing in some zero G.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
That's the best stuff.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I haven't seen the zero G stuff.
Okay. Tell me what you're going to say, and then I'll tell you what's in the zero G footage.
No, you tell me first because mine's about when he lands. So let's talk about being in space.
So, if you didn't know, Jeff Bezos of Blue Origin, regardless of all the legal controversies of them in SpaceX and NASA, and there's a whole separate conversation. One of the things they're doing as marketing is, they are getting flights up on Blue Origin on the rocket as fast as possible. I think they're planning like a dozen flights next year. They even have another flight with another yet unannounced, maybe celebrity member crew, probably not Betty White, coming out before end of this year. Betty White's 99 years old, guys. But William Shatner, of course, the big news, 90 years old. He was one of the 4 crew members who got to go up, edge of space. In zero G, there's cameras inside because it's basically, this is for space tourists, right? You can pay like $1 million or $2 million, whatever it is, to go on one of these rides. They're trying to make space tourism a real thing. And people are doing the thing they do, like the same as Inspiration 4 crew. They're like eating the food, they're floating around, right? They're playing with like the wonder of being in zero gravity, kind of the same stuff you'd see at the Vomit Comet, except with the Blue Origin capsule, their windows, and William Shatner. Everyone's like kind of floating around, doing the zero G, playing with the food thing. He is not doing that. William Shatner, Captain Kirk, is looking out the window and looking at Earth and just saying, "This is magnificent."
Yeah, see, he's doing it right.
Magnificent. Like he is just in awe of it. And you can tell the moment he's having is like a reflection of his entire life almost. Like the culmination of him being Captain Kirk has led up to that, not even the coming down to Earth part, but him being in space. What if like that brought me to tears almost.
Yeah.
I'm watching it now, and I don't think it can be understated how childlike Shatner's facial expressions are. He is just filled with wonder. And there's one scene of him where he turns back towards the camera and you can see him mouthward just wow. And like he doesn't have words for it. And then Jeremy, you should talk about what it's like when he gets off the ship.
Well, apparently there's 4 people on board. 2 were paying customers, wealthy people who had paid to go up, and then there's William Shatner and the CEO of Blue Origin, or chairman of the board rather. And they all land, and I just thought that it was interesting to compare that whole process to SpaceX, because in SpaceX they land them in the water. There's a big crane that like pulls the capsule onto a barge, and robots like things that like pull it towards you, and then people come out one at a time. There's much less pomp and circumstance with Blue Origin. Like it's they have like a metal staircase that they bring over, they plop down, they seem to have some sort of like little rubber mat they roll out for people, and then people just come out as they want to, but you got people walking around giving them the thumbs up and everything, and there's nobody in masks. And in SpaceX there's people in masks, and they have to check for radiation and hose it all down and like do extra checks, get everybody off. I just thought that was interesting. It's much less involved in the desert, getting people off a space capsule. But then you get William Shatner come off, and he's emotional. Like he's visibly just like he's had an experience that he wasn't prepared for, and it's just remarkable to watch him talk about it, because he starts to cry a little bit, and he talks about going up and seeing, and then having the blue change to darkness, and that's what he wasn't ready for, despite being Captain Kirk. He wasn't ready for that transition to being so instantaneous. And he compared that transition to possibly being like what death is like. He said, is that blackness? Is that what death is? Is that, and as somebody who's 90, he's given this some thought, and this is like what on his mind. And I found it just so moving to see him talk about that. The fact that we can send a 90-year-old up to, to space, to the edge of space, is amazing, and that bring them back down safely, to have had that experience and not have to be, an astronaut in perfect form. I think this is amazing. Obviously, everybody can't do it yet. It's, like you said, there are questionable things about Blue Origin, but this is an amazing thing. And I think it was a really smart move of them to put William Shatner on this and interview him afterwards, because it left me with just a great feeling. And anybody who hasn't watched the video of his interview afterwards, you have to go watch it, because it's quite something.
Yeah.
So I give A+ to William Shatner. Even before, when he went on, he was self-deprecating and funny about the whole experience. He had like a good perspective about what he was going up there for, and then just the raw emotion that we just talked about. Just A+. I am going to remain deeply cynical about the corporation that funded this and what it was, which is a marketing stunt. Let's just be honest about putting William Shatner into space. Now, he just delivered on that marketing stunt, but I think it's appropriate that we remain somewhat skeptical of these kinds of things as we continue to go in the future, and because we're just going to see a few more of these stunts, given how successful this was with William Shatner.
Is there a problem with that? Like, we are in such early days of space tourism. Yeah, there's going to be some lame marketing stunts.
I'm super supportive of like the technological achievement. The frequency is what I'm most interested in, how many flights they're able to do and how quickly. I think those are super important, and there's every reason not to be cynical about that. But we're being spoon-fed a narrative that ignores some of the larger issues that we need to talk about, because there is some aspect of this work that is privatizing space that we can't ignore, because like space has long been a democratic area for the entire Earth to enjoy. Now, space tourism is fine, but that's not the end goal of Blue Origin. Blue Origin really wants to move towards stuff that we would find akin to like asteroid mining and stuff. And so the extension of corporate influence into a space that has normally been just primarily owned by no one is one that we should be deeply skeptical about. And so that's why I'm very cognizant of how much I buy into the marketing narrative now, as we move towards that. Now, that's years in the future, but I think that's why the skepticism needs to still exist.
I will say, if you have any respect for Jeff Bezos, you may not have it anymore after watching the video I recommend everybody watch, because when Shatner comes off, he wants to start talking about this, and he's visibly emotional. And Jeff Bezos turns his back to William Shatner because he wants to get a bottle of champagne, and he like shakes it and sprays it over everybody. Shatner like takes a step back so that he's not, drenched in this alcohol, which clearly is just like distasteful to him. And then Jeff turns back and is ready to receive more of what Bill Shatner has to say. And I hated that. I hated watching that, because I wanted to see what William Shatner had to say. He clearly had a profound experience and had nothing to do with popping champagne.
Yeah, he over delivered as a passenger on this, and regardless of who he is, and the marketing hoopla around it being William Shatner, just as a person coming back, like the eloquence in which he talked about the overview effect is what we're talking about, seeing all of Earth, or as much Earth from this perspective. It's something that isn't communicated enough, even from NASA astronauts who get to go up. It's just like they sent close to a poet. Nearly there. All right. They could have sent a poet. They should have sent a poet. They sent Shatner instead, and that's pretty good. All right. Last couple bits of things before we wrap up. We have a lot of VR to talk about, but there's an Apple event this coming Monday. The assumption is that they're going to be announcing the new MacBook Pros everyone's waiting for, the new running the new M1X chip, the ARM-based chip, finally converting the entire MacBook line to the ARM-based processors. No more Intel MacBooks after Monday. That's assumption, but who knows what surprises may be there. I'm still holding out for a preview, a glimpse of their VR/AR ambitions that we've so much rumored about. But in the AR and VR space, oh boy, so much to go on. Let's start with AR. Magic Leap 2. We saw the first images of their new CEO talked about a new round of investment. They just raised another $500 million into Magic Leap because they have the Magic Leap 2 coming out. And, it looks a lot sleeker, a lot flatter in the front. There's still a bevy of sensors in the front. We don't know what it means for the optics system that they have. Are they using the same waveguide system with eye tracking with the 2 planes of focus that they had in the Magic Leap 1? It looks certainly a little bit sleeker in terms of the headband, but it's still going to be powered by an external battery puck and compute unit. But they've tempered expectations as to what this device is. It's not going to be a consumer device. It's going to be developer first, and they're in it for the long haul. Enterprise markets. Makes more sense. Much more sense.
Has a wider FOV. I had no idea that the first one was anything other than a commercial product. Were they ever trying to sell to consumers? That seems weird.
I think it was the burden of the expectations, the hype, the cover of Wired magazine, all the rounds of investment, billions in investment for a multi-billion valuation. They Magic Leap 1. They had it in AT&T stores. They were selling it in AT&T stores with Game of Thrones demos.
Yeah.
I mean, all their partnerships with comic book, AR comic books and the Dr. Gordborg games and the Weta Workshop, Weta Game Shop stuff, like all of that was to make it a consumer product, a high-end consumer product, but it, the tech wasn't there. So I'm really curious with less about the form factor, more about the optics, what they've solved, what they've improved on with the Magic Leap 2, but that's still a little bit away, and hopefully we can get some access at some point. What is closer, though, is HTC's new headset. This was kind of an interesting announcement because it was all leaked a day before, but now formally leaked or formally revealed. It is the $500 HTC Flow. HTC Vive, important. It's the HTC Vive Flow. So they're using the Vive name, but it's not a Vive like you've seen before. It's not a VR gaming device. It's almost like their take on the Oculus Go, maybe. It's lightweight, made for media consumption and some productivity in terms of virtual meetings. And $500 ships on Friday.
When you say light, I think you're underselling it. It's 189 grams, which is less than half of what the Quest 2 weighs. So it is not even a half a pound. It is like, 0.4 pounds. And it looks like ski goggles. It has a very different feel to it.
Yeah, and if you look at the external, it looks like there are these giant sunglass lenses on the front, and they hide 2 cameras because it does have some 6-off tracking. There's supposed to be hand tracking in the future. 6-off tracking really is for comfort, so the media looks like it's going to be in place. But streaming media from your phone, there's a Qualcomm XR1, not an XR last gen processor in here. You're supposed to use an external battery pack for any extended use and use your phone as a motion controller. So there's no dedicated controller. The thing is, they seem to have designed this device for people who maybe who want VR, a VR-like media experience, but don't want to wear a bulky VR headset. So even the optics or the lenses they have in here, they have built-in diopter adjustment. So you don't have to wear glasses. You're not supposed to wear glasses under this, but they can just work with whatever your eye has. 75 hertz refresh rate, 100 degree field of view, and they say 1.6K per eye, which is kind of in that Valve Index era of display resolution.
My one question is, this isn't fully wraparound. It just is like a pair of glasses in that it just has extended, temple arms. Do you think that's gonna like be stable enough? That was the one thing when I looked at the picture. I was like, even at the lighter weight,
I
it
think
feels a
if
little
they're
front heavy.
if they're really focusing on media consumption, it should be okay. Like the only reason why that would be a problem is if you're playing games and you're looking down a lot.
Yeah. You look at all the promo photos of this, and everyone's heads tilted up. It's
Yeah.
a lean back experience, right? Lean back. So resting on here. I don't know how tight the armbands are. If there's there's pressure there to hold it in place, or if there's even a strap in the back you could use. But they're banking on this being an easy put. It's like their version of those old Sony, watch movie in OLED displays, right? It's the tracked version of that. I'm not particularly excited about it, but the thing that's interesting is that they're trying to expand the Vive brand and make use of the manufacturing, and they think there's a market for this. So maybe there is.
I don't know.
Certainly an app ecosystem they're going to build for it for media and meetings.
It's $500. You can get a Quest 2 for $3. And the Quest 2 can do just as much media consumption and play a ton of games, has a faster processor.
It's true. HTC has always been in a tough spot.
Touch controllers for tracked hand movements. Like there's just so much more that you get for less money. And yes, it weighs twice as much, but it's not that heavy. So I don't know. Good luck.
Yeah. We also had some teases in the VR space. Both Mark Zuckerberg and Boz posted photos, whatever. I guess it was on Twitter as well. They visited Michael Abrash in the Redmond studios and put on they showed off two different prototypes. The one that Mark Zuckerberg was wearing apparently was a Retina resolution prototype. Don't know what that's supposed to imply in terms of display. And the one Boz was wearing looked actually a lot like, do you remember the old Kickstarter render of the original Oculus Rift? The more ski goggle like. This one really looked like ski goggles. But that one's supposed to be a prototype AR headset with what he said was a long story behind it, but no elaboration. What's with these teases?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when is Connect?
October 26th. I think it's just leading up to that.
I hope so, but I don't know. I mean, I don't imagine it's possible neither one of these products will be actually announced there, right? These could be further out. These could just be trying to mess with HTC's Vive, press coverage a little bit. Who knows? I'm just looking forward to Connect to seeing what products actually are on the horizon. We all know that Facebook has numerous prototypes in production. So yeah, I guess it's neat to see them, but doesn't mean much.
I kind of don't. I would love for them to show glimpses of this at Connect. I would not be necessarily thrilled if these were announced as products at Connect, because they had so heavily indicated that the Quest 2 was the thing that they are still working on and going to be their flagship headset for then at least next year.
Right. I think more realistically, it's going to be whatever we've heard about the Quest Pro, the Quest 2 Pro, or there was another one, I forget, or Quest 2.1. I forget. It's like there's one that's supposed to have eye tracking potentially and have more. It's all going to be XR2 based, and I don't think it's going to be higher resolution necessarily. But there's supposed to be some more features coming in the higher version of the headset. That I imagine that's what we'll be seeing at Connect. But I have no idea. I have had no information, nor have you. So
yeah. We also had coming up also before that, Vario. Remember the company we saw a couple years ago at Augmented World Expo with their hybrid displays. They have like a combination of a super high density, high resolution display plus a standard VR headset in the back. And they have 3 models so far. They tease that they'll be announcing something on the 21st as well. Their biggest product yet, I think, is what their landing page says. So that's different market, I think, more toward enterprise traditionally is what they've made. But I've always been interested in seeing what they've been able to put out on the high end. I think their last headset was like $3,000 to $4,000 with a $800 annual subscription for enterprise support. So definitely not for the consumer space. in their past products. And then out this past week, Lone Echo 2. Last couple minutes, Jeremy, what do you think? Lone Echo 2? Have you played some of it?
I played the first hour of it, and I think it's great. I think it's more of the same. It's more Lone Echo. It's very slow paced, which I do not mind. You're in space, and it's happy to take my time floating around, solving puzzles, engaging with the world. It's great. I love that series. Ready at Dawn is always delivered, and I'm happy to play this. It's also kind of bittersweet because it's Oculus's last PC VR title. For at least for the
Yeah.
I don't know what that means necessarily, other than like it's kind of the end of their first era because they did start as a PC VR company. And as the mobile VR becomes more powerful, it will eventually reach this level of quality and surpass it. But I'm happy. I think this is an appropriate last title.
Have they formally said that? Or is that just our assumption?
Oh, okay. No, it's our assumption. But I think it's a safe one.
I think it's a safe one too. I mean, like we go back to interviews we had in person at Connect, and I asked Jason Rubin and I guess Mike Verdu at that point, are you guys going to invest in PC VR games? And they said yes. I don't see it happening either with the success of Quest, and we saw the porting of Medal of Honor for Quest 2. The market is clearly on mobile first.
Yeah.
If they're going to put money into games, and they've acquired developers from developers Onward to Ready at Dawn, Beat Saber, right? Like they're going to develop for Quest 2 primarily. But it being if this is the last Oculus Rift, and there's no Oculus Rift anymore, right? The Rift S is no longer for sale. But if this is the last big game they're selling for desktop VR, it comes at a point where Airlink is extremely viable as a way to play it, and it's how I've been playing Lone Echo 2.
Same here.
And I really like that experience. It makes me wish that they can see how viable PC gaming still is because of Airlink, and because there's still a large contingent of people with good GPUs, with PC desktop systems or laptop systems who can play high-end games and get a much higher fidelity of visual fidelity of experience or scope of game than you would have necessarily on a game stored on 60 gigs on a Quest 2. So I'm a little disappointed in that sense because the technology is there. The wireless streaming tech makes this more viable than ever. And yet I understand it's a huge investment for a developer to put in this. But it feels like a Half-Life Alyx caliber game in terms of art assets and systems and polish. And I know it's been delayed forever. For me, it's like it feels a lot of the same. It feels like Lone Echo 1. In fact, I conflate some of the game in the first hour of like, is this the same environment I went through in Lone Echo 1, or was this Lone Echo 2 one of the first demos that we played like years ago? One of the E3 demos that we were able to play. It just feels very deja vu-ish. I hope it picks up. It's supposed to be like a 10-hour game, $40, 10-hour game. No brainer if you have a Quest 2 and a gaming PC. That does it for this week. Let me wonder what else should we announce. There's nothing else to talk about. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on the site, of course. Some videos from New York Comic Con. If you're a tested member, check out that show floor tour. Let me know what you think. But thank you all for listening. Jeremy, Kishore, great to see you. Kishore, so glad you survived that earthquake, that lava right at your feet.
It was touch and go there.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I wanted to promote a couple things. Hockey season's back, so you know where I'll be. I'm also talking to astronaut Nicole Stott next Tuesday about her new book. I'll put some links on my Twitter feed if anyone wants to check it out. It's a virtual forum about her new book called Back to Earth that is all about the overview effect.
Oh, well, there you go. I'd love to hear more about it. We'll listen to that interview later. Thank you all for listening. Again, we'll play an outro after we wrap, but until then, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Tested. I was guilty, as maybe we're all of us at one point, of not knowing what we were talking about last week.
No.
I mean,
100%.
That's a hallmark of the show.
Yeah.
That's on brand.
I mean, we
takes.
did that partially on purpose because as we were talking about Matrix 4, none of us could remember what happened at the end of Matrix 3.
Guys. Okay, confession time.
Come on, that's a super forgettable movie.
Tested.